It's not going too well in the old polls for Keir Starmer. I think he had his lowest poll rating of all time at the weekend. It's quite a staggering kind of manoeuvre, isn't it, that he went from being, you know, perhaps the most popular politician to inherit Downing Street to where he is now.
Keir Starmer has gone and done it. He has practically signed, sealed, and delivered his party's death warrant with this colossal blunder. The streets are alive with the sound of hatred for Labour, and honestly, who can blame anyone? This time, however, Starmer hasn't just stumbled, he's sprinted past the line of no return. His decision is so mind-bogglingly daft that it's bound to chop his government's days in half.
Well, so we went from the election of change, where people wanted to see change coming to the country. We had a blip where things moved slightly positively for Keir Starmer, but then it came crashing down again, and that's what we're seeing today. It is a more disillusioned and perhaps impatient general public as we move into party conference season.
That's right, Starmer is now falling behind in terms of public support. The same Labour Party that once won a landslide victory over the Tories now seems to face strong competitors. The public, it seems, is disgusted.
Reform UK could be on its way to your constituency. A new opinion poll shows Reform UK could gain another dozen seats from the Tories and Labour, as support for the Populist Party surges from 14.7% to 21%.
Well, Starmer has done it again, managed to tank Labour support right into the ground. They're now limping along at a miserable 33%, having hemorrhaged their majority to Reform UK. And speaking of reform, they've gone and pulled off a blinder, haven't they? They've shot up from 14.7% to a whopping 21% in the polls. That's a massive rise, isn't it?
The We Think poll showed Tory support slipped from 24.4% to just 20%, with Labour stabilising at 33%.
The Reform Party inches closer to the top spot. The party is now 1% ahead of the Conservatives, who have lost 4% of their votes, settling down at only 20%. For Starmer, this means the most frightening thing: his arch-nemesis, the Brexit's pivotal character, is coming for his spot in Downing Street.
But you have to ask the question why so many people who are supporting reform seem to be exposed in this particular way.
Well, we all are, and sure, no one will miss him once he's gone. This is actually a moment of relief for people who have been admiring Nigel Farage since his Brexit campaign, when he completely dominated the European Union.
After 3.5 years of deception and dishonesty, we will be leaving this prison of nations at the end of January. And we won't become a third country, as I've been hearing this morning. No, we're going to become an independent, self-governing nation. And you can delude yourselves this morning inside this cathedral that all is well, but it isn't. It isn't. People do not want to be run and governed by face.
Farage has been hailed as the hero of Brexit. He viciously fought against the entire European Union, playing a key role in aiding Britain to secure its independence from them.
Riding the wave of victory as he declared the UK's Independence Day. Nigel Farage hailed British voters as they chose to leave the European Union.
The sun has risen on an independent, united kingdom. I'm proud of everybody that had the courage, in the face of all the threats, everything they were told, they had the guts to stand up and do the right thing. You're right.
The head of the UK Independence Party, or UKIP, had staked his political future on this moment.
I've wanted this vote, all my adult life.
Farage became a beloved politician from the day he announced Brexit on the media. Love him or loathe him, you can't deny the man's got clout. What makes him even more notable is the admiration and close relationship he shares with the new US President and Republican leader, Donald Trump. For Starmer, this spells disaster. Any hopes he had of cozying up to the Republican camp have gone up in flames after he and his allies managed to royally piss off Trump. Now, with Trump in his corner, Farage is arguably one of the most influential figures in Britain. Let's be real, Starmer must be sweating bullets because Farage is edging closer to a position where he can grab Starmer by the scruff of his neck.
That we're going to see this time next week is going to be huge, and so that could give Reform a number of seats. I don't think they'll quite pull it off, but I think they're going to take an enormous number of votes off the Conservatives. I mean, I think they were polling at 20% yesterday, which is huge. I mean, it's amazing that in a short period of time, you have a party that didn't exist at the last election that might win a fifth of the votes. It's incredible.
Starmer, on the other hand, has done nothing right ever since he was handed the seat of power on a silver platter. If anything, he has only made matters worse for himself and his party.
Very disappointed with Keir Starmer's speech, as I think a lot of people were. We should also just note, this isn't my opinion, in the leadership ratings in all of our national polls, he's down by about 30 points since coming into power. I mean, this guy is quickly becoming one of the most unpopular prime ministers that we've had in a long time. In fact, as I'm talking to you, only a couple of hours ago, we had a new poll out this evening showing that compared to when Labour won the election at the beginning of July, Keir Starmer's ratings are down 36 points. So people really haven't warmed to him at all. He's now minus 13, which I guess if you don't know what that means, he's not too far off what we'd call Prince Harry territory.
He really had to mess up his lifetime chance, didn't he? This makes it nearly impossible for Starmer to rebuild his party's strength after the stunts he's pulled since his appointment as the UK Prime Minister. Meanwhile, Farage is swiftly gaining new voters and supporters across the country. His clear line of sight and decisive approach have attracted a significant majority.
So it's been an extraordinary few weeks for Reform UK. The party has rocketed up the polls since Nigel Farage announced 2 weeks ago that he was taking over as leader. Our latest polling suggests Reform can get 5 seats. That's 5 more than we were predicting at the start of the campaign, and they include places like Clacton in Essex, Boston and Skegness, another big Leave voting constituency, as well as Ashfield and 2 more. So why are voters here choosing this party? Well, Reform UK say they want to win over people from what they describe as left-behind communities. And if we look at the places where their message is cutting through, we can see that they do experience higher levels of deprivation than the rest of the country. This index here, it measures things like income, education, health and housing. And Clacton, where Nigel Farage is standing to be an MP, you can see it's the 45th most deprived constituency in the UK. And then on the opposite end, we've got places like Surrey Heath and mid Buckinghamshire, usually Tory heartland.
That doesn't mean Farage can dip his fingers in honey, but he, too, has tough challenges to face. If he plans to overcome issues in poor areas like Clacton, he will need to address those challenges head-on.
How much does Reform have to offer people living in places like Clacton? Well, let's take a look at their biggest policy on tax. This is what Nigel Farage had to say about it at the party's manifesto launch.
But I think the most innovative policy that we've put out in here is to raise the level at which people start paying tax to £20,000 a year. That would be a good thing, of course, for those on low pay.
However, the Reform leader seems to have a good grip on the situation. He has managed to easily snatch Clacton away from both Labour and the Tories. So, if you're thinking Farage is a man who is becoming invincible with each passing day, you have surely hit the jackpot. Nigel Farage has been dominating the charts, never slacking and always performing his duties honestly, which has earned him a special place in people's hearts. His exponentially increasing power means Starmer's political pitfall is growing ever more imminent.